A young girl's family is suddenly destroyed. She and her first love join hands to avenge their death, but they are pursued by their enemies. They both jump off a cliff to save their lives. But Taylor is dying of fever. There are suspected pursuers approaching with torches. After regaining consciousness, Taylor is in a strange cave. She is being tended to by a man, Tony, the slave servant who told the truth about White's murder. He had fled to Mountain with Taylor's help and happened to meet the inhabitants of a nearby cottage. He settled there. Recently, there have been armed men in Mountain. The residents of the cottage are very wary and often come out to patrol the area. The night before, he met the two of them who were running away from their pursuers. Tony recognizes Taylor lying under the tree. He persuaded the residents to take them in for a while. The cottage was isolated, and the information was limited. Sean's skill is storytelling. He tells them all about what's going on in the world. He won the hearts of many of the residents. As Judy had said earlier, people who were worried about making a living were happy to hear a good story or two. The residents searched the hill early. There were many armed men on the hill with the cliffs. Worried that Taylor and the others might be too much to handle, the kind-hearted residents volunteered to join the investigation. They traveled across the river and through the jungle to see the rocks in front of them. They soon discovered the mouth of a mine hidden in the canyon. The gold diggers had long since withdrawn, leaving only the servants in their wooden cages. They made faint whimpering noises. Luckily, they were rescued in time. Their lives were not in danger, and one of them was an older slave. He remembered the face of the head of the fighters and was able to identify them. But they didn't expect the bandit to return with his men. He'd just received orders to eliminate the two men who had become so entangled. Sean's knife and the skills Taylor taught him came in handy in the fight. But they were outnumbered and outgunned. It was too much for them to handle. Taylor's neck was at the mercy of a sharp knife. As the battle was about to be decided, a bow and arrow solved the immediate danger. The magistrates of the town arrived to save the day and wiped out the bandits. They were led by the magistrate's confidant, Lord Observer. He sensed something strange was going on and secretly sent him to protect Taylor. This way, the magistrate was able to clear his name. After the crisis was over, Taylor sat down on a rocky outcrop on the summit to take a nap. Turning around, she saw Mrs. General standing not far away. With a saddened look on her face, she approached the edge of the cliff. It was Taylor who pulled her back to the brink of death. Mrs. General was not involved in the planting of evidence against the magistrate, but she could imagine General's ruthlessness. And when she saw the slaves who had been separated from their families because Mrs. General had bought them to mine gold, she felt shock and guilt. The shock and guilt in her heart were magnified. With the arrest of the villain's leader, it's only a matter of time before General's ugly behavior comes to light. In the dead of night, he begs the interviewer for another chance at asylum. At such a critical moment, the interviewer is only concerned with his own safety. He even threatened General that if he said anything against the interviewer, his whole family would be buried with him. General had no choice but to take the blame. General was about to turn himself in at dawn when he ran into Taylor, who was also on her way to the magistrate's office. General returned all the gold he had dug up and gave the servants proper compensation. But he doesn't really realize his mistake and still acts like money is the only thing that can fix everything. Most of all, he had not yet admitted that he had covered up his ugly greed, which had led the innocent magistrate's family to be accused of treason. Taylor said he was close to forgiving the family. Mrs. General stopped her in her tracks and got down on her knees, begging Taylor to save them. In the county court, Mr. Observer himself retries the case. Samuel submits an appeal for his father's dismissal from office and confiscation of his family's property. When the witnesses come to the court, General is so shocked that he can't utter a complete sentence. Hagen, who has recovered from his injuries, turns up. Hagen is actually a man. There are many people like him who are different from the rest of the world, and his parents are ashamed of them. The world discriminates against them, so they band together and carve a heart on their shoulders. They learn self-defense in secret to protect each other, so they are not thieves. He didn't dare to reveal his identity until now, because someone cut him down to make him look like a traitor. But when the observer asked him what he looked like, Kai said he couldn't remember. This is where Samuel's lawsuit ends, with no mention of General's crime. The next case was about gold mining in Mountain. General's failure to report the vein is a major offense, and the illegal procurement of slaves to mine it is an additional one. At that moment, Taylor, who had been silent all along, came forward and asked for General's defense. Everyone, including General, was surprised. Shouldn't she be the one to throw stones? Why is she helping her enemy? But since Taylor had asked for it, the Watcher didn't stop her. She said that General had forged documents, enslaved civilians, and stolen government property, and that he should be marked and sentenced to death for his sins. However, Article 24 of the Ming Law stipulates that if a criminal turns himself in, he can be exempted from punishment. Nowadays, there are thefts and digging everywhere, and although the court has issued a ban, it is not easy to control it. If a generous pardon is granted at this time, it is believed that those who have been blinded by corruption and have committed evil deeds will be able to turn over a new leaf. This will be the path to the realization of a rich nation and a rich people. These words moved the Lord Watcher, and he finally agreed to a lenient sentence to remove General from his post. And the bad guys got what they deserved. No one could understand Taylor's defense of General. General was humiliated by her help. But Taylor wasn't a saint, and she didn't pretend to be noble. She helped him for two reasons. The first was because she had promised to help General if she could get Maxim back to Oak Clan. She would help the General. The second reason was because her father-in-law had told her that the law was not for the weak. Everyone is equal before the law, even the guilty, and that makes a good lawyer. And the magistrate who said that would not want Taylor to be blinded by hate. With those words, General's tense heart finally crumbled. He fell to his knees and bowed his head in shame, saying breathlessly that he would return the family's possessions and servants. He didn't say a word about being sorry, but every word was filled with guilt. The magistrate was cleared of all wrongdoing, and the slave girls and servants were returned to the magistrate's office. Samuel holds the magistrate's tablet and sends him to his rightful place. Hagen is finally free and safe. She had to bring Simon news from home, so maybe it wouldn't be long before Simon returned and life would get back to normal. And it's time for Taylor to say goodbye to Sean. Everyone has the right to follow their heart, so Sean didn't hold back. He took the hairnet ring he gave Judy, which was Judy's legacy. He said that the Judy that was once Judy was gone, and now there was only Taylor, who lived for herself. Sean's last name for her was Lawyer. Taylor stops Sean, and she says what she didn't say at the abandoned farmhouse. The young man who gave Judy the kanji was indeed Judy's first love. At first, she chose to avoid him because of his status and situation, but later, she refused to leave together because of something she had to do. But she has been treasuring the gifts she received and thinking about them with her memories. Even if it only ends here, it's still a sad ending. Taylor watched Sean turn and walk away. He didn't look back, and she didn't say anything but 2 lines of tears. 7 years have passed since then. Taylor had become a well-known lawyer in town, solving countless cases all the time. But today was an exception. Today was the day Samuel returned home from his exams. Samuel sees Taylor waiting at the entrance of the village, and he embraces her, ignoring the strange looks from other people. Naturally, he brought home a lot of gifts, including the finest bamboo brush holder and a bookmark made of jade. But he gave them all to Taylor, and the servants and maids waited anxiously. But the last gift was still given to Taylor. Disappointed, the servants turn around and leave. It was then that Samuel stopped them and told them that there was a cart parked outside the wall full of gifts for them. For 7 years, Taylor has been writing to Samuel, but has never gotten a response from him. Samuel was about to get married, and it was such a big deal, but she didn't know what to do. It's a big deal, but she doesn't know how to go about it. Mrs. C, jealous of the Taylor family's success, started a rumor that Samuel and Taylor had a skinship and were so shameless that no one would dare to marry their daughter into their family in the future. Until one of the ladies brings a matchmaker with the news that she is looking for a suitable wife for Samuel. The other ladies, with a twinkle in their eye, made excuses to leave. The other wives, with a twinkle in their eye, made excuses to leave. So it seems they went to the matchmaker. Who wouldn't love a handsome man like that? But there is someone who doesn't, because the woman accidentally bumped into Samuel and left his belt behind. Samuel wanted to return it, but the woman mistook him for a stalker. Samuel is dumbfounded by her legalese, and she takes the opportunity to turn around and walk away. The woman's name is Cha, and she's anxious to get Taylor's help in her defense. A neighbor named Janice had recently developed a non-contagious skin rash and was fired from her job at an inn without even being paid. Taylor checks in with her and realizes that Cha has a heart of gold. She took care of many patients with rashes, and even Taylor admired her love. Her presence also solved another problem for Taylor. Samuel couldn't stand any of the women introduced to him by the matchmakers. He said he would only marry a woman who resembled Taylor. That's when Che visited. From her and Samuel's reaction, Taylor quickly realized that they had been in contact. They happened to be of similar age, and Taylor admires Che very much. It looks like the marriage will be finalized soon. Late at night, Taylor takes Samuel with her to deliver aloe vera ointment to a patient in Che's care, only to see her sneaking off to a farmer's house on another street. It turns out she's taking care of a nursing mother. The woman's husband drinks all day and night and beats his wife every time he gets drunk. Che was meddling, and the man even hit her when he couldn't stand her. Samuel intervenes to stop him, and it is at this moment that their relationship begins to blossom. Taylor's reputation was spread across the next few counties. When the hotel in the next town overheard that Cho was hiring Taylor, they returned Janice's paycheck without a second thought. Cho seemed to share Taylor's ambition and offered to stay and help. Taylor had no reason to refuse, but little did she know that on the very day Che became a paralegal, the patient she was caring for wiped off a fake rash and asked Che's father for a paycheck. And Che, in a change of pace, threatens to keep the secret. Who is she? Why did she disguise herself to get to Taylor? Whenever she's alone with Maxim, Taylor is able to be her carefree Judy self. She said, "Isn't that what life is all about?" But that offhand remark took her back to 7 years ago on the mountain. The day Sean told him that's what life was all about. Eating the smallest things, laughing at bad jokes. A sudden flood of memories took over her thoughts. 7 years had passed. Was Sean okay? Sean's books still sell like hotcakes at the bookstore, except he hasn't written a new one in 2 years. I heard he hadn't performed in a long time either. Taylor leaves a little disappointed, but feels a shadow following her. Upon closer inspection, it was Taylor's slave, Wilson. He's come all the way to town because the other day Sean broke into someone's theater with a scythe and made a scene. Now he's in jail, and the only one who can help him is Taylor. Taylor entrusts Samuel with the family's affairs. The next day, Wilson and I were ready to board the ship. Looking ahead, there was a familiar figure. It was Samuel. Taylor called out his name and ran forward. But Samuel got on the boat and left without a second thought. In the end, Taylor was left with a strange back. The 7-year meeting ended in tragedy.